Hey everyone, this is D&D Lounge and another episode of How to Use D&D Spells, a series where I look at spells from the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons. This episode's about Disguise Self, the tricksy illusion spell that lets you change your appearance at the snap of a finger. Here's the spell's description and the classes who can cast it. With Disguise Self, you're able to transform yourself along with whatever you're carrying to look different. You can't become much bigger or smaller, and you must retain your limb configuration. But otherwise, you have total creative freedom. The tricky thing is that the illusion doesn't hold up to physical inspection. It's kind of like creating a hologram image around your actual body and belongings, which retain their actual shape while the spell is active. Beyond that, a creature can make an investigation check against your spell save DC to see through the disguise. The spell lasts for 1 hour until you dismiss it, and doesn't require concentration to maintain. That's the basics of how Disguise Self works in 5e. Now let's get into a few fun ways to use it in your next game. Use number 1 is for Copycat. Disguising yourself to look just like the main villain or one of their lieutenants is the perfect way to access more information about your enemy's plans. It can also be used offensively by giving out incorrect commands or otherwise sowing confusion among enemy ranks. Fair warning for this use of Disguise Self. It may require you to enter into hostile territory without your allies, so you should always have an escape plan ready. Use number 2 of the spell is more subtle than the first, and that's for blending in. This can mean a few things. One way to blend in is to take a literal army fatigue or chameleon type approach, possibly granting you advantage on stealth checks at the DM's discretion. It could also mean turning yourself into a still-as-death statue who can listen in on conversations without fear of being noticed. Or you could just turn into a regular-looking local to prevent anyone from noticing the new stranger in town. Another great way to use Disguise Self is to pair it with Friends or Charm Person. These two spells come with the downside of the target knowing you charm them after the spell wears off. However, the target also blames whoever they perceive to be the charmer, so if you disguise yourself beforehand, you're in the clear. Another good use of Disguise Self is for detective work. The idea here is simple. If you're searching for someone who you've seen before, use Disguise Self to look just like them. Then you can go around asking potential witnesses if they've seen your twin sibling or something along those lines. My next use for the spell is changing your weapon. This can take a few different forms. If you're trying to get into a place where weapons aren't allowed, Disguise Self is one way of concealing them while they're still easily at hand. It's technically possible to change the shape and size of your weapons as well, for example, making your greatsword look like a dagger to throw off your opponent's reactions. However, this grants no mechanical advantage in combat unless your DM decides it does. Another good use for Disguise Self is being spooky. The idea here is to turn into a ghost, demon, skeleton, zombie, whatever. Whatever thing will help you scare the person or group of people that you're trying to scare. This could work to cause chaos and confusion, which your party can then take advantage of. My next tip for Disguise Self is to pair it with the Actor feat. This feat gives you advantage on deception and performance check when you pretend to be someone else, and allows you to mimic other people's voices. When paired with Disguise Self, these two perks make it almost impossible for anyone to see through your ruse, making it much easier to perform copycat missions where you take on the form of an authority figure. And for my final Disguise Self tip, I'd like to point out the Mask of Many Faces Eldritch Invocation. This warlike invocation allows a player to cast Disguise Self at will without using a spell slot. And with the Eldritch Adept feat, anyone can grab this power. The ability to seamlessly transform into different disguises at will is both thematically fun and mechanically strong, especially in an adventure that centers on subterfuge. Those are 8 fun ways to use Disguise Self, but I'm sure players have endless stories about this spell coming in handy. But for now, let's answer a few common rules questions that come up around Disguise Self all the time. Rule number 1 is that if a creature sees through the illusion, the spell doesn't break, and they don't see your true form. It's just that one single creature who passes their investigation check discerns that you are disguised. They do not see what is beneath that disguise. This is in contrast to a spell like Minor Illusion, which includes a clause that if a creature discerns the illusion for what it is, the illusion becomes faint to the creature. The spell continues at full effect for its 1 hour duration until you dismiss it or until you get hit with Dispel Magic. Rule number 2 is that you cannot radiate light with Disguise Self. While you have significant leeway in creating objects with the spell, none of them can produce actual sensory effects like light or heat. Those effects generally fall into the school of evocation rather than illusion. And rule number 3 is that you cannot become invisible with Disguise Self. Nothing in the spell's description indicates that you can change your transparency. While you can probably become blurry with Disguise Self, you wouldn't benefit from the blur spell. Basically, don't try to game Disguise Self into an effect that's clearly more powerful and has its own spell already. Those are the questions that come up often around Disguise Self, but let me know in the comments if you're still wondering about how the spell works. For now, let's answer the final question of the day, and that's whether Disguise Self is a good spell. My answer is yes, Disguise Self is a great spell, especially for the party's face character. Most of the spell's uses involve social encounters, and being naturally good at charisma checks will help sell the disguise in these situations. The sheer range of utility that Disguise Self offers means that it will likely be useful in any campaign. That said, if your adventure involves many opportunities for deception, you'll find that Disguise Self is often the linchpin in your plans. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you found this guide on Disguise Self helpful and can show your appreciation with a like and subscribe. It's a massive help for small YouTubers like me. If you have any stories about using Disguise Self in your own Dungeons & Dragons game, or questions about the spell's rules, please share them in the comments below. This is D&D Lounge wishing you the best of luck in your next spellcasting venture.